What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Gaming Billio, and I'm very confused about how to feel about this one, folks. I am finally getting rid of the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D CPU, folks. My favorite CPU of all time. It has been with me for a little bit less than a year. I've done many things with it, had some great memories, although I didn't get to use it as much as I would like to. It is finally time to get rid of it, sadly. It is just not enough capabilities with editing and what I need for this channel, in the sense that video editing takes up a lot of core count and a lot of processing power itself, and it just did not come with any of those capabilities because it is a gaming first CPU and everything else comes after. So that's the main reason why I'm getting rid of it. It is such an amazing processor, and till this day, it is still the best budget gaming PC processor on the planet, and by far, if you look at the prices for the 7950 X3D, even though the 7800 X3D came out, this with that $250 or $300 sale price is one of the best CPUs for gaming on the planet still. It is number 4 or 5 in almost every game you test, and when it uses the Vcache especially, it's still up there. But the problem itself is, as you guys could see, the 3D Mark Time Spy CPU physics test right here. This is results in frames per second. Higher score equals better performance. You could see it is on the level of an i5 11600K, a Ryzen 5700X, a Ryzen 5800X, and i9 11900K, which is, it hovers around that mark, which is just horrible for someone that's trying to get editing done, someone that needs to do CPU heavy workload. It is not a great processor for that at all. But for gaming, it is an amazing processor. And this 3D Vcache right here that revolutionized the gaming CPU industry in the last year or so, excuse me, has made some real cool leaps with this new 7950X3D with the 5.7 gigahertz clock speed, but it is at the $699 mark with taxes included, motherboard, RAM. You're looking well over $1,000, folks, and that is really a break the bank kind of option. When I already do have a 4090, and for what I need, that 3D Vcache, even though it does come better for emulators and for certain games, most games still cannot use that 3D Vcache, and it is not really to my benefit for the money. After especially having a 5800X3D and seeing what the capabilities of that Vcache is, this processor that I want to switch to is the Intel i9 13900K. As you guys saw from the picture, I have been an AMD fanboy for at least 3 years now. I started off with the Ryzen 5 3600 as my first gaming CPU on my first gaming rig, and where I started from before that was Intel integrated laptop graphics, playing World at War, modded zombies where you had to actually input the code yourself for the games and all that. So going from that to a 5800X3D with a 4090 has been an absolute treat, and it's been more than enough for me in the gaming side of things, and I would be more than happy to keep it for the next 5 years for sure, if it wasn't so handicapped for the workload itself, folks. So the 13900K right here, the Intel i9, has 32 threads. You heard that right, folks. 32 threads and 24 cores. It is an absolute monster. It is one of the most powerful CPUs for our consumer end products of all time. It is actually the most wattage, where you could see on this chart right here. So this is the 7950X right here, and the Core i9 13900K does come. Let's click on that so you guys can see in full screen. The 13900K at stock does beat the Ryzen 7950X in single core Cinebench score for rendering. This is the stock 7950X, which is a little bit stronger than the 7950X 3D in workload, except for 7-zip compression. So if comparing this to that, you realize that this is much better than the 7950X 3D in most workload processes. And it could actually overclock the memory to over 7400, which is nuts. There's no AMD processor right now that could go up to that, sadly. The AMD processors have been a bit of a underwhelming performance in my opinion, because of the very little capabilities with them. The 3D models that everybody seems to want is locked from overclocking most of the time, and when you do overclock, it is a lot more complicated because of that 3D V-cache you have on the die itself. So overclocking could burn out the processor completely without knowing what you're doing. One part of the processor could be burning out without the other knowing that it's actually overheating, showing that in the Windows itself, because Windows does have something that does stop that. But if you do overclock manually, which you would have to do in a 3D variant models, it does sometimes burn out the CPU without giving that warning to Windows to let you know, hey, this processor cannot take this heat and workload that you're pushing it. So when you look at the 13900K, it actually can be taken off the power limits, which can go above 400 watts, which is an insane number, and 5.6 gigahertz of overclock, and 4.4 on the P cores, which is the E cores, which is the efficiency cores, and then there's P cores, which is 5.6, which is the main cores, and it has 8 of that and 16 of that, which is nuts. And as you guys could see, it is like a 3,000 point difference in the Cinebench R23 core single core, multi-core count right here. So this is the single core right here, and the 13900K does come above the 7950X. The score for the 7950X is 2051, and yeah, as you guys can see, stock, the single core, does perform at almost 2300, which is nuts. Blender, the i9 13900K does win when overclocked and when the power limits are removed. The 7950X does have that slight lead ahead of it in stock, because of the higher single core frequency I believe it has at stock. So that is one very slight lead it has in the 13900K. In everything else it pretty much loses. In core count it loses. Efficiency when idling, the Intel CPU idles at 10, and the Ryzen 7950X and the rest of the Ryzen's probably at like 50 or 60 watts. So that is a big difference in idling. If you guys do leave your CPU on to idle, leave your computer on to idle, like right now we are basically idling right now. The windows are already open, we're not doing much workload if any, and for tasks like this, when browsing and just idling, it is a lot more efficient, even though the media would lead you to believe otherwise. So I am really upset at AMD right now because I am an AMD fan, and Intel was one of the worst processors with the 12th gen at $900 with the KS, or one of the most expensive processors on the planet, if not the most expensive consumer processor. I think it was a total rip-off. What they did with the 12th series was absolutely absurd, and the 5800 X3D came, kicked its ass in everything, and left Intel with wondering what happened to them. As you guys could see, the 5800 X3D right here with workload CPU tests, still not great with the old processors right there that are much ahead of it. But let's look at the right there, the 3D Mark score. You could see it is somewhere between that. It's not great at all for what I need it. Even though it is an average FPS, one of the highest, for me right now, it is not the processor. The 13900K does beat it in pretty much everything except for the 15 games that the Vcache is used. And emulating the Vcache is used, which I do a lot of on this channel. But I don't think that it's going to be enough to where that 32 thread 24 core monster of a CPU, the i9, can't handle it with the 32 megabytes of Vcache, even though the 7950X 3D would be the one that I would like. It is sold out everywhere currently, and the price is just absolutely absurd for the performance. The 7800 X3D is currently the best gaming CPU on the planet, just like the 5800 X3D was after the 12900KS release. But it just, for the price, $100 more for the KS, I mean the 13900K right now, I think is just much better price, value, and workload, and it performs about the same for around the same price. So yeah, that's the main reason. Intel really did well by taking this CPU and putting a 15 to 10% discount on the product itself right when the X3D chips did launch. I did notice stock of the motherboards, the 790s, Z790s, go flying off of shelves after the X3D launches. So that shows that these processors are actually being bought more after the X3D launch itself, which is pretty impressive to see after how many months that this processor is still keeping up with Ryzen's best CPUs that they just released with the newest 3D Vcache technology. Sad to see that, but AMD really dropped the ball here, folks. The AM5 architecture does not even use DDR4 very well. So the speeds that the 13900K could go up to is, some have gone up to 10,000, which is sounds impossible. When you say that, it sounds like you're a crazy person. But the average CPU and motherboard for the Z790 and Intel 13900K goes well above 7,000, and that's just to plug it in and turn on the Intel XMP 3.0. But the AMD can't even go above 6,000 right now, folks. So it is very troubling times for that processor, in my opinion. They really dropped the ball, even though that they show these charts and this and that for gaming and this and power efficiency. The technology just has not reached its pinnacle of performance, and DDR5 is not being really used when you're getting the same speeds on a DDR4 processor, it really doesn't make much sense to upgrade to that AMD DDR5. But that's just my viewpoint on it right now, because I don't have the 7950 X3d, and I can't really compare that to the 13900K because I don't have that either right now. But this is from all the video comparisons I've seen, all the blogs, all the internet posts, and just the FPS and CPU benchmarks I've compared. The 13900K, for the price at the discounted value, is a much better processor in my opinion, and does everything I really need of it. If it happens that the 32 megabytes of L3 cache is too little, I will probably end up switching over to the 7950X or the 7950X 3D if it is back in stock. But for right now, folks, this is definitely the processor for me. It is a big winner, and I'm sad to see AMD go, but they really dropped the ball with this 7000 launch, trying to just hype it up with the numbers of gaming and all that. But it doesn't make any sense. If gaming is your main concern, then you would buy a 7800 X3D. That's why they made those processors come out later. And then if gaming is a concern, but you want the CPU workload to be more of a focus, then the 13900K would be the better option, or the 7950X with that 64 megabyte L3 cache. It is a better option for workload by far, but not for gaming. So the 13900K for everything I need it for, and with the Intel codec, it is actually better for video editing because it has that integrated graphics and the Intel codec, which works with Microsoft much better. It's already been how long that Intel has had a monopoly, and AMD's just starting to become at the top of the chain over here and being main competitors with Intel itself, making them push the limits of their CPUs, as you guys can see with the 13900K. It has been very good for the CPU market to have all this competition. So yeah, that's my opinion, little overview over the processors. 7800X3D, probably worth it if you're looking just for gaming. The 7950X3D I would have probably bought, but the price and out of stock, so I'd have to save up and wait a while before it probably comes back in stock. It's not really worth it to me when the 13900K does beat it even in a lot of games. So yeah, that's it for this one, folks. That was the little overview. So we're going to get that 13900K soon. Sad to see the 5800X3D go, but it is what it is. So we're going to be having a lot of overclocking videos. We're going to be unlocking the power limits. We're going to see what the XMP rating is for that processor, and get the memory to go all the way up, and a bunch more gaming videos coming soon with this 13900K. I'm going to try to get a couple more videos with the 5800X3D before I have to ship it out. But yeah, that's it for this one, folks. I appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and if you have already, hit the bell icon. Thank you very much for whoever comments. I really appreciate the input, and it really helps me understand things, and I've learned a lot from comments, and I've also taught many people through the comments. So if there's anything you're interested in, any questions, feel free to comment. I will get an answer out to you with the best of my abilities. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.